Alright everybody, we are back this week for UFC 301 Pantoja versus Erceg, the main event for the flyweight championship of the world between the undefeated contender in the UFC and Steve Astro Boy Erceg taking on the reigning, defending, longtime UFC flyweight champion in Alexandre the Cannibal Pantoja. And in the co-main event of the evening, you have the former reigning, defending UFC featherweight champion, the King of Rio and the bantamweight contender, Jose Aldo Jr. returning to the UFC to take on longtime contender in his own right and a very dangerous kicker in Jonathan Dragon Martinez. Scarface versus the Dragon. What a co-main event and what a show we have for you at UFC 301. So without any further ado, let's get this started and step into the ring. Alright guys, we're here for UFC 301 and we're obviously going to get right into the card. But before we do, how about those picks from last week? We had Alex Perez by knockout in round 3, even though he had it in round 2. We had Bogdan Guskov by knockout. We had David Onama. Man, we were on fire last week. We missed Tim Means, but we knew that there was always the possibility that he got knocked out in round 1 by the supremely technical and powerful kickboxer in Uros Medic. But, you know, it is what it is. But, man, the Onama pick, the Guskov pick, and then Perez by knockout in the main event. I feel like I was one of the only people in this community who had Alex Perez to win. And not only to win, but to win by knockout. A lot of people very heavy on Matheus Nicolau. I don't understand how you could be, knowing the durability issues, which is exactly what we talked about. And the minute that Perez started putting those combinations together, he was too fast, too crisp, too clean, trapped Nicolau up against the cage and landed a bomb of a right hand and put him out. But we're going to get into this card. We're going to get into UFC 301. There's a lot of fights I want to talk about, a lot of things I need to discuss for this card, and we're going to kick it off with the first fight up in the flyweight division between Alessandro Costa taking on Kevin Borjas. All right, Alessandro Costa versus Kevin Borjas. I think this fight is actually pretty difficult to predict. I think that both of these guys are very talented. I think both of these guys have a lot of promise. You have to give the power advantage to Costa, training out of Shuto box. He has a very brawler-esque style with his striking, but he has a very solid power. Good works, good shots to the body, decent low kicks, but he's mainly like uppercuts and hooks. He's like a traditional brawler, in my opinion, but he knows how to land those shots. Look at the main event. The guy fighting for the flyweight title, he was able to hurt him multiple times in that fight, take him down, drop him. We know that Costa has the better jiu-jitsu. He's going to be able to get takedowns, control Kevin Borjas from the top. And if this fight does get to the ground, I think Costa's not only going to be stronger, but he is also going to be a lot more technical with his ability to hold position and ability to look for submissions. If you go back and you watch the Steve Erceg fight, he jumped for a flying armbar. He went for an armbar from the guard. He's really, really solid. He's not the most technical on the feet, and he can get hit. And I think he has issues with guys who are always going to be at a reach advantage because Costa's short, stocky, but he finds his way into the pocket to bomb away with those big overhands, those big hooks, those big uppercuts. Kevin Borjas is going to have an advantage on the feet. He's going to be the better striker overall. He uses his length, his reach very well. Pops the jab, pops the 1-2, 1-2s down the middle, good left hooks. Always keeps that rear hand up when he tries to throw the lead hook. And really can put his combinations together well. Good low kicks to punctuate his combinations. Front kicks to the body. On the feet, I think the power goes to Costa, but the technical skill, the reach, and just the output overall, I think that goes to Kevin Borjas. I would say Costa, I would say he has the finishing upside on the feet, but honestly, Borjas rocked and hurt Joshua Van really bad, and then after he hurt him again with a 1-2 down the middle. He's got one of the cleanest 1-2s in the UFC. Pops that jab out, uses his length, uses his reach, and follows through with that right hand beautifully and catches people on the chin. It's fast, it's crisp, and it's clean. If you look at Alessandro Costa and you go back to the fight with Steve Erceg, the long-range punches and the fully extended punches and the reach advantage that Erceg showcased is really what gave Costa a big issue. The 1-2s, the jabs, popping the jab, following up with the right hand, double jab, right hand. And that's where Borjas is really going to be at an advantage. I think with cardio, I would give the advantage to Alessandro Costa. The wrestling, I would give to Costa. The jiu-jitsu, the submissions, the strength on the ground, I give to Costa. But the technical skill, the ability to measure, range, control the distance, follow through with fully extended boxing combinations, chopping with low kicks, I give that to Borjas. I believe this fight really comes down to where the fight takes place. If it's in close, if it's dirty, if it's up against the cage, I think Costa's winning the fight by closing the distance with big overhands, big hooks, big uppercuts, and getting into the clinch in the over-unders and overpowering Borjas. If the fight takes place at long range, if the fight takes place just at kicking distance or in mid-range, I think that's where Borjas is going to win this fight, and he might even finish Costa because we saw Costa get rocked and get hurt against a long, rangy striker who I believe doesn't have the same power and pop that Borjas has in Steve Erceg. I'm going to go with Kevin Borjas here as the underdog. I'm not super confident in it only because I picked Costa to beat Steve Erceg in their last fight, and he almost got it done on certain points, and I'm a big fan of Costa. This is going to be the first time I pick against him, but I just think the length, the reach, the distance, I think Kevin has good enough takedown defense as well to stop the wrestling of Alessandro Costa. Would I be surprised if Costa got takedowns? No. Would I be surprised if Costa landed a big overhand or a hook as he tried to close the distance? No. That's why I don't think you should bet on this fight at all. I wouldn't recommend betting on this fight from either side because it's just a really, really solid fight and really good matchmaking. But I am going to take Kevin Borjas. I think he's going to use that length, going to use that reach, and I think he's going to stun Costa, who we've seen get knocked out by Amir Albazi, get rocked by Steve Erceg, and I think there are some durability concerns on the side of Costa, more than I would think are on the side of Borjas. I think cardio concerns on Borjas' side and durability issue on the side of Costa. So I'm going to take Kevin Borjas to get the job done. I think he stops Alessandro Costa. I think he lands a 3-2, not a 1-2, a hook into a cross, rocks him, rips to the body, drops him, and gets him out of there with a second round TKO. I'm going Kevin Borjas to defeat Alessandro Costa by second round TKO in the first fight up at UFC 301. All right, up next we've got a battle in the lightweight division between Vince from Hell Pichel taking on Ismael Bonfim. I have kind of lost my steam on both of the Bonfim brothers. Gabriel Bonfim should have beat Nicholas Dalby 9 out of 10 times. Ismael Bonfim did lose and get submitted by Benoit Saint-Denis, but we saw how good Saint-Denis has looked and even how good he looked in his last fight against Poirier, taking him down, controlling him, getting his back, almost submitting him, but again, just kind of falling, to the wayside and not being able to pass that veteran test. But I don't think that's something you can hold against Ismael. Vince from Hell Pichel isn't the best technical fighter. He's a little bit wild, a little bit reckless, and he kind of closes the distance and range behind, looping hooks, overhands, 1-2s down the middle. He has a decent low kicking game, but he really wins fights on just showcasing grit, determination, and just really saying, fuck it, I'm going to try to kill this guy, and I'm going to try to push him forward, and I'm going to try to break him. I do think that both the Bonfim brothers, not just Ismael, not just Gabriel, I think they both have quit in them. And I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, you're a quitter, you're a shitty fighter. No, I think Ismael Bonfim is good on the feet. He uses a good jab, good overhands, good hooks into his crosses, measured the distance beautifully and threw that switch flying knee against McKinney up against the cage, knocked him out. We picked him there. I picked him against Benoit Saint-Denis, and obviously, he let me down, showcasing kind of an inept Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu defense. Didn't really know what to do once the fight hit the ground. Gabriel is a better Jiu-Jitsu artist than Ismael is, but I think Vince from Hell Pichel is going to win this fight the later it goes. If it's an early stoppage, I think it's Ismael Bonfim cracking him with a big right hand, cracking him with a flying knee, getting him with a head kick. I think he hurts him, rocks him, and gets him out of there early. The longer the fight goes, midpoint of the second, into the late portions of the second round, into the third round, I think that's where the veteran skill of Vince Pichel will take over. I think he will start to slow down Ismael Bonfim if he's not able to bully him. But I think the age, just the veteranship is it's good to be a veteran in some cases, and it's bad to be a veteran in others, because you've been through wars, because you've been hurt, because you've been rocked, you know, because you've taken a lot of shots. I think that kind of comes back to bite Vince Pichel in the ass in this fight. And I think the younger, less UFC experience, but the younger fighter is going to be able to rush Vince from Hell Pichel and is going to be able to hurt him, rock him, and then eventually just get him out of there. If Bonfim tries to hurt him, rock him, and just kind of blows his wad and isn't able to finish him, then Vince Pichel is a good live betting opportunity. We talk about live betting in the UFC sometimes. I think Pichel is a good live bet because he's probably going to get dominated in the first round. He's probably going to lose the first round. But if you see Bonfim taking big, deep breaths, you know, maybe he hurts him, rocks him, drops him, gets a big shot off, and you see him start to huff and puff going into round 2, and you see Pichel still there, wide-eyed, ready to go, I think you live bet Pichel. But pre-fight, I think you got to go with Bonfim. I think he's going to be faster, he's going to be more powerful, he's going to be more explosive, and I think he's going to be more well-rounded than Bonfim, but I think it's going to be the speed and power, not than Bonfim, than Pichel, but I think it's going to be the speed and power that really wins this fight for Ismael Bonfim. I'm going to take him by a TKO in the second round. I'm going to say he hurts him real bad, but he stops him early in the second. I said to watch midpoint to late second round into the third. I think he gets him out of there before that midpoint so he won't be able to gas and get broken. But like I said, if you see him breaking, you see him slowing down, you live bet Pichel. But pre-fight, I'm going to go with Ismael Bonfim, and I'm going to go with Ismael Bonfim via a second round TKO. I think he's going to stun him with a big overhand, hurt him with a head kick, something big, rock him, jump on him, rip the body, rip knees up the middle, drop him, and get him out of there. So give me Ismael Bonfim to get the job done via second round TKO against Vince Pichel. But I've kind of soured on the Bonfim brothers, especially from a betting perspective. So I would say that this is a pass or a live bet on Pichel in the midpoint of the second round if he's a big underdog after getting dominated in round 1. But we're going to take Ismael Bonfim, second round TKO. Up next, we've got a battle in the women's flyweight division between two Contender Series alums in Diony the Witch Barbosa taking on Ernesto Kareckaite. This is going to be a really solid fight. I'm actually very excited because I'm high on both of these girls. I think the Diony the Witch Barbosa is a very solid Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu artist. She has good takedowns, good ability to get the fight to the ground, can use head and arm throws, can use hip tosses, and she can go for submissions at any point off of her back with triangles and arm bars. From the top, she can go for, you know, side control arm bars or the key locks. I don't know what you call the arm bar from side control, but it's kind of more like a key lock than an arm bar, but it's like a straight arm lock using your thighs to kind of bend it and break the arm. She's going to have a grappling advantage against Kareckaite. But Ernesto Kareckaite is a very good striker, man. She's not the best technically, but she's good enough to get by. And I love her activity. I love her output. I think she's going to be the much more active fighter in this matchup. I think that's the biggest thing that people are missing. They see the wrestling, they see the jiu-jitsu, they see the top control. I think Barbosa has a ton of world championships, is ranked very highly in jiu-jitsu, and she has good wrestling, decent ability to get the fight to the ground, and when she gets on the ground, she's going to go for a bunch of submissions. But in Kareckaite's fight against Carly Judas, I was actually on the side of Judas, who was the favorite going into that fight. She went back and forth, and Judas was not an easy out. And she hung in there, threw a lot of volume, a lot of 1-2s, overhands, hooks, uppercuts, good work from inside the clinch, good knees from in the clinch. And the biggest thing that I saw was her ability to showcase good takedown defense. Now, Barbosa's a different level of wrestler than Diony Barbosa, obviously. Barbosa is going to be the better fighter in terms of grappling, in terms of jiu-jitsu, in terms of top control. And if she gets Kareckaite to the ground, that's obviously going to be a big problem on the side of Ernesto Kareckaite. But The one thing I like about her being a taller, longer, rangier fighter, even though she kind of gets into the pocket and gets clipped, she is a taller fighter who, you know, those fighters are harder to take down in terms of traditional doubles and singles. It's going to have to be inside and outside trips, and even inside and outside trips against taller fighters, they're able to maintain their base and wiggle their way out of those positions and defend takedowns. I saw Kareckaite defend a ton of takedowns from Judas, work off the fence, turn position, go to knees from inside the clinch, knees to the body, knees to the head, elbows off the break, and the ability for her to not stop in such a high-paced fight is really what's pushing me towards that underdog price tag on Ernesto Kareckaite. I know a lot of people are high on Barbosa. I know Barbosa is the better grappler. I know Barbosa is going to have the better jiu-jitsu, going to have the better top control, but it's going to be harder for her to get those takedowns against Kareckaite. And obviously if she does and Kareckaite tries to get up recklessly, she gives up her back, Barbosa can take it. Barbosa can go for an armbar, can go for a triangle, can go for a rear naked choke, control the position. We know that. We know that the skill gap on the ground is going to be much bigger, but I almost think the skill gap on the feet is just as big for Kareckaite, just because of her volume, because of her output, because of her length and her reach, and the ability, or not the ability, but the fact that she's so tall, it's harder to take those type of fighters down. And even on the Contender Series, we saw her showcase good cage wrestling, good ability to defend takedowns, good ability to cut the corner, good ability to break off from the takedowns and get back to striking, good ability to strike inside with dirty boxing, inside the clinch, elbows, uppercuts. And I really like her striking. I like her output. I like her takedown defense. And I'm going to take Kareckaite to win this fight as the underdog. Last time I checked, she was plus 180. I know the skill gap with the jiu-jitsu. I know Barbosa is a very solid submission artist, a very solid wrestler, a very solid jiu-jitsu fighter and submission-based fighter. But I think it's going to be hard for her to get those takedowns, and I don't think she's going to be able to compete with Kareckaite on the feet in terms of volume and output. She might land some big shots. She might stun Kareckaite, but Kareckaite is undefeated. Obviously, you know, you never know with undefeated fighters coming into the UFC at this point because the game is just ever evolving and changing. But I like Kareckaite, her length, her reach, her output, her activity, her technical striking, her striking inside the clinch, and her takedown defense. I'm being pushed to take the underdog. In my mind, I feel like she is the better pick. And it's not just based on odds. I like the style of Kareckaite as well. And I think she's going to give Barbosa more problems than people think. So I'm going to take Ernesto Kareckaite to defeat Diony Barbosa via a 29-28 unanimous decision, coming through as the underdog in this fight. But don't miss this fight. I think this is going to be a banger on the early prelims. Up next, we've got a battle in the lightweight division between a Contender Series alum again in Mauricio Ruffy taking on Jamie Mullarkey. I'm going to be honest with you. I think this is a Ruffy spot all day, but you can never know with Contender Series alums. You know, Jamie Mullarkey has the UFC experience. Experience always plays a factor in this fight, just sometimes it doesn't cause the win. I worry more about the durability of Mullarkey than I do the experience of Mullarkey in this fight. Kind of similar to the Nicolau fight, where Mullarkey has the better experience. He's probably going to be able to put together a better game plan, but we know that if you touch his chin, you can rock him, and it doesn't take much to put him away. Early on in his career, he had that war with Brad Riddell. They went back and forth. They both hurt each other. Riddell got the decision. But at this point, I mean, Nasrat Haqparast put him out with one overhand. And Haqparast is, a powerful striker, but he's not really known for putting people out. So to hurt Mullarkey and get him out of there that early, that's kind of a bad look. Getting hurt and dropped by Naimov and finished, that's not a terrible look, to be honest, because we know that Naimov is a very solid contender now, and he's coming off that big win over Nathaniel Wood, who I think would run through Jamie Mullarkey, but that's besides the point. I like Ruffy's ability to use distance and range. I like his output. I like his ability to kind of put together technical combinations. He doesn't overthrow. He doesn't put together 4, 5, 6 punches, but he has good grappling, good ability to, continue to up the pace. When he smells blood, he'll put it on you and try to get you out of there, but he's not overly reckless to the point where he runs into unnecessary shots. He stays measured, he stays patient, finds the opening for the big left hand, finds the openings for, body kicks, low kicks, can go with spinning wheel kicks to the head. can throw spinning elbows, can throw jumping knees. He has those unique and extreme techniques, off the wall techniques that are very high risk but high reward if you land them. But he's also technical. He uses his length. We know that Mullarkey's going to be the longer fighter, but he doesn't fight like a long fighter. He gets on the inside, slips, rolls, bobs and weaves, looks for uppercuts and hooks, looks to roll and come back with a hook, looks to roll, come back with an uppercut and hook. But I think he's just going to eventually run into a shot from Ruffy. I think Ruffy's going to be technical, measured, and find the openings on Mullarkey early, and I think he's going to hurt him. I think he's going to rock him, and I think he's going to finish him off with ground and pound. I'm going to take Mauricio Ruffy, who is the favorite going into this fight, but I'm going to take him by a finish. I think he's going to clip the chin of Mullarkey early. I feel like this is going to be first round, but maybe I should take second because he's on the Contender Series. No, I'm going to go with first. My first instinct was to take first round. So I'm going to go with Mauricio Ruffy by a first round TKO. I think he's going to measure, control the range, catch Mullarkey coming in with a big straight punch, a big uppercut, something big that's going to rock him. He's going to jump on him, land body kicks, chop the legs, land knees up the middle, elbows, jump on him and get him out of there. When Ruffy smells blood, he's going to go for the finish. So give me the Contender Series alum in Mauricio Ruffy to defeat Jamie Mullarkey by a first-round TKO. I like Ruffy in this spot, man. I like what I saw from him on the Contender Series, and I think he's measured and technical enough, but also has that finishing instinct and ability to push when he knows that he has you hurt. If he smells blood, he's going to go for it. So give me Mauricio Ruffy, first-round TKO over Jamie Mullarkey. Up next, we got a battle in the lightweight division between Joaquim Silva, Neto BJJ, taking on Drakkar Klose. This was a fight that I actually have a very hard time picking. I think that Drakkar Klose is the more well-rounded fighter. I think he has better wrestling. I think he has better ability to control where the fight takes place. But I also don't like his striking. I don't like the fact that he doesn't move his head. And I don't like the fact that when he rushes in for punches, he has the ability to get clipped, get hurt, and get knocked out. And against a fighter like Joaquim Silva, I think Klose is going to have the better cardio. He's going to have the better ability to push the pace. But I think a lot of people are taking that knockout against Joe Selecki when he slammed him in the triangle and running to the betting window, betting on a guy who we know hasn't been finished a lot in his career, but has been rocked, has been stunned, has been dropped, has hurt people as well. But I don't like his striking offense. I don't like his striking defense. I don't like the fact that he leaves his chin on a silver platter for any power striker to hurt him and put him away. The output and the volume isn't really there from Joaquim Silva, but Joaquim Silva has decent jiu-jitsu. He has decent defensive wrestling. I know not against Arman Tsarukyan, but he hurt Arman Tsarukyan and almost put him away in that fight, eventually then getting taken down and getting TKO'd. So I think this fight is a coin flip, but if I have to pick a fight that's a coin flip, I'm going to take the fighter who I think is less of a durability concern and has the power to put the other fighter away based on their durability issues. And that's Joaquim Silva. I'm going to take Silva. He's coming in as the underdog, but I think he can hurt Drakkar Klose and stun him. And then I think Klose is going to panic wrestle and he's going to leave his neck out there to get caught in a guillotine or caught in a Darce choke and end up getting submitted. I think it's an inside the distance play for Joaquim Silva here. I think that Klose is the better wrestler. I think Klose is going to push that pace. I think he has better ability to control the fight once it hits the ground, but I don't think he necessarily has the submission upside that Silva has. I don't think he has the power upside on the feet, and I don't think he has the knockout upside on the feet. So I think all the finishing upside is on Joaquim Silva. All the defensive holes and defensive concerns are on the side of Klose. And when you're kind of giving me the answer to the question on a big PowerPoint screen, I'm going to take the answer that you're giving me, and that's the fact that I think Joaquim Silva is not only the more dangerous fighter, but the more durable fighter. And the concerns that Drakkar Klose gives me in terms of not moving his head, in terms of walking into the pocket, throwing punches with his head on a silver platter and his chin in the air, I think Silva can rock him and either knock him out with a big shot and finish him off with ground and pound, or rock him, catch his neck, and submit him, potentially hurting him really bad, jumping on a guillotine, a Darce, or a rear naked choke, and then just having him, go to sleep. But I'm going to take Joaquim Silva in this fight. I'm going to take Silva, and I'm going to take Silva by a knockout. I think he's going to catch Klose coming in with a big overhand, or catch him with a big uppercut on a level change and knock him out. I'm going to take Joaquim Silva by a second round TKO against Klose. I like Klose as a fighter, but I don't like his liability and the fact that he doesn't have good defense and he leaves his head there to be hit when he throws his shots. Really good wrestler, a better wrestler than Silva, better ability to control when it hits the mat like we said, but I think just the concerns are too much on the side of Klose. So I'm going to take Joaquim Silva, second round knockout. I think he catches him with either a big overhand right, like I said, or an uppercut up the middle, jumps on him with ground and pound and gets him out of there. So give me Joaquim Silva, second round TKO over Klose, again as the underdog. Alright, up next is going to be a battle in the UFC's featherweight division between another Contender Series alum in Gene Silva taking on standout technical striker and amazing fighter at range in William Gomis. Gomis versus Silva is a tricky fight to call. It really is, because Gomis is very technical. He's very crisp. He's very clean. Uses that southpaw stance. Finds his way to get that outside foot and outside angle. Jab, check hook, left kick to the body, left hook or left kick to the head. Front kicks up the middle. Really good at measuring his range and kind of skating on the outside. Reminds me of like a poor man's version of a Israel Adesanya, because he doesn't necessarily have the knockout power or the finesse that Adesanya has, but he fights in the same style. Fighting at range, fighting at distance, you know, staying on the outside, skating around the octagon, throwing front kicks up the middle, throwing 1-2s, and, you know, being able to maintain his distance and catch fighters coming in as a very solid counter striker. Won against Francis Marshall, and I think Marshall is actually a pretty solid fighter, but he kind of just had Marshall lost in there. But when we're talking about Gene Silva, I think Gene Silva has the one thing that Gomis hasn't seen in the UFC yet, and that's concussive knockout power with uppercuts, with knees, with overhands. And he's not going to bum rush and be overconfident in everything that he throws to the point that it's going to open up the counter striking of Gomis. But he's going to find his reach, he's going to find his range, and he's going to try to land big shots. Big left hand, big right hand. He'll probably fight in orthodox for most of this fight. So big overhand right, big 1-2 down the middle, elbows, knees, you know, and I think he's going to try to just make Gomis uncomfortable, but every time Gomis tries to counter, I think he's going to come back with a big shot. I think the more powerful fighter in this fight is Gene Silva, but I think if Gomis can stay on the outside, skate around the octagon, you know, get that outside foot positioning, land kicks to the body, land front kicks, land knees, land 1-2s, use the jab to kind of circle around the cage and not allow for Silva to close off that distance, then I think Gomis kind of skates his way to a decision or lands a big counter strike and knocks out Gene Silva. But I think Silva is smart enough and powerful enough to find his way into the pocket, cut off William Gomis, trap him up against the fence, and land a big overhand, land a big uppercut, land a big 1-2 down the middle, and I think he's going to eventually catch Gomis, trap him against the fence, land a big shot, hurt him, and get him out of there. I think Gene Silva's going to play it patient, so I don't think it's going to be first round. I think it's either going to be late second round or into the third round where Silva kind of cuts off Gomis, finds that distance to land the kill shot, lands a big straight punch, or like I said, a big overhand on the chin of Gomis, hurts him, lands to the body, land knees to the body, lands elbows, drops him, and kind of crumbles him. I don't think it's going to be like a full knockout. I think it's more going to be a TKO, but I think he's going to eventually close off that distance and get into the pocket and land a big bomb and put down William Gomis. I would not be surprised, though, if Gomis was able to keep his range and keep his distance and pick apart Silva. I just don't think he's going to be able to do it for 15 minutes without running into the kill shot from Gene Silva. So I'm going to take Gene Silva by a third round TKO against William Gomis, but Gomis is good. Gomis is very sharp. Gomis knows what he needs to do, and he's a very intelligent fighter. So it's going to be hard for Silva to close the distance. It might even be a smarter pick to go with the more technical, longer, rangier, and point fighting style of Gomis. But I think Silva's going to close that distance off, cut off the cage, trap him against the fence, play it patient, and find a big shot and not let Gomis recover. So give me Gene Silva via a third round TKO against William Gomis. Up next, we have one of my most anticipated fights on the card in the UFC's lightweight division between Elves Brenner taking on Orolbai. Elvis Brenner versus Orolbai is a very tricky fight because I think a lot of people are going to look at Orolbai's performance against Uros Medic, who's coming off that first-round knockout against Tim Means, and see how much he was able to take him down. I think he got 8 takedowns, 9 takedowns, controlled him, used the Dagestani handcuff, the wrist ride, broke his posture, and every time he tried to get back up to the feet, he took him down. And it was rinse and repeat and rinse and repeat. Orolbai's not only a wrestler, he can strike on the feet. He has good strikes at range, 1-2s, good hooks, good uppercuts. Landed a big uppercut on Charles Hayward. I think that's his name. You can correct me if I'm wrong. But if you look into Charles Hayward's record, it's like 15-18 or 18-15 to something crazy. And he doesn't have a ton of good fights on his record. The win against Uros Medic, though, I think proved to a lot of people how good Orolbai can be, and that if you get those takedowns, if you allow him to control the distance, you allow him to control the range, you allow him to get in close to you and push you up against the fence, you're going to be in for a world of hurt. I don't think Elvis Brenner necessarily has the best takedown defense, but I think if he does get taken down, I think he can work his way back up to the feet, and I think Elvis Brenner is going to be the better striker in this matchup. I don't think he's necessarily more technical. I think Orolbai might be able to keep him at distance, land front kicks, land knees to the body, land 1-2s. You know, and we saw in the fight with Garam Kutateladze that Elvis Brenner got clipped and hurt and stunned at the end of round 1, lost round 2, and then in round 3 came back and eventually found the kill shot with a big overhand on the inside and dropped Garam Kutateladze and won that fight as like a plus 400, plus 500 underdog. He came into the UFC and took on, I believe it was Zubaira Tukagov, and won that fight as a big underdog as well via decision, but it was a close fight to where I think a lot of people thought that Zubaira should have got the decision there. I think Orolbai obviously can get those takedowns, but I don't think he's going to be able to keep Elvis Brenner off of him for the majority of the fight. I think Elvis Brenner is going to have good enough defensive jiu-jitsu to defend and work his way back up to the feet. I think Brenner's going to have the better cardio. I think Brenner's going to push a higher pace the longer the fight goes. I think he'll push a pace in round 2 and in round 3. If we get past round 1, I think we're going to see Orolbai kind of slow down. Now, we saw him get the submission in round 2 against Medic and continue the same trajectory after getting hurt and rocked early in round 1, and you know, he seemed to keep the cardio up, but I think it's going to be a lot harder to hold down Elvis Brenner. I think it's going to be a lot harder to get takedowns on Brenner, and I think the output in activity and the dirty boxing and the ability of Brenner to get on the inside and kind of rough up Orolbai is going to give him some trouble. I think he's going to get hit with elbows, uppercuts, knees. If I was Brenner, I wouldn't throw too many knees, just because, you know, he can catch those knees and take you down and then wrap you up in the triangle leg mount, wrap you up with the wrist ride and control you. So I think if I'm Brenner, I would throw kicks to the body, but I would go with body punches, uppercuts, you know, bolo punches to the body, elbows over the top, knees up the middle, but be selective with your knees like we just talked about. I think Brenner is the fighter who I'm going to side with based on the fact that I think he can push a higher pace later on in the fight, and I think he's good enough defensively to defend the takedowns, make Orolbai work for the takedowns, and even if he gets taken down, good enough to defend the submissions and work his way back up to the feet. I know Orolbai has decent striking. I know Orolbai can land big uppercuts, can land big 1-2s, can land head kicks, but the main way he's going to win this fight is based on his wrestling, his top control, the wrist ride, the triangle leg mount, and just controlling where the fight takes place and breaking the base of Brenner and kind of wearing him out. I don't think he's going to be able to wear out Brenner. I think Brenner's going to get out-wrestled early, but I think he's going to make Orolbai work. He's going to work his way back up to the feet, and he's going to continue to push forward. He's going to continue to get into that dirty boxing. He's going to continue to walk down Orolbai, which, yes, can open up for big counters from a powerful striker like Mick Tebek, but I think Brenner's going to eventually just break Orolbai the longer that the fight goes. I think midpoint of the second into the third round, I think he's going to be able to break Orolbai, and I think he will be able to defend the takedowns. I think he gets back up if he gets taken down, at least, later in the fight. I think it's going to be easier for him to get up, and I think even if he gets controlled early in the fight, he'll be able to defend submissions and defend ground and pound, work his way back up. So I like Elvis Brenner, again, as an underdog. I feel like I'm going crazy here, seeing the value on some of these underdogs, but I think Brenner can push the pace, defend the takedowns, or defend the submissions, work his way back up if he gets taken down, and kind of break Orolbai longer in the fight. I'm going to go with Elvis Brenner, or Elves Brenner, as the underdog to win this fight via a third-round TKO against Miktabek Orolbai. But I would not be surprised if he got taken down and got controlled and out-wrestled. Maybe he doesn't get finished, but he gets controlled for the majority of the rounds and can't work his way back up and land big strikes. But I think he's going to be able to do that, and I think he's going to be able to, defend the game of Orolbai and kind of break him down the stretch. So give me Elves Brenner to win this fight via third-round TKO by just being that good old-fashioned junkyard dog and fighting until the end. Up next, we got another really, really interesting and good matchup in the UFC's featherweight division between Jack Tank Shore taking on Joe Anderson Brito. Brito's a guy that I don't think I can get right if I tried. I picked against him with Andre Fili. He lands a big overhand early in the fight as Fili tries to counter with a hook, knocks him out. I pick against him with Jonathan Pierce, thinking that the wrestling is going to be too much, he's going to get controlled, and he's not going to be able to work his way back up. Not only does he work his way back up, he works his way back up into a ninja choke and almost rips JSP's head off for a second-round ninja choke submission. And then I go to find out something that I didn't know, and the fact that Brito has a win over Diego Lopez on the Contender Series. And he dominated the fight for the most part. Like, he got caught with some big shots. He got put in an armbar. He got put in a leg lock. He got put in some compromising positions. But for the most part, he controlled the grappling, controlled the top position, controlled the fight when it hit the mat, defended submissions, and outstruck Diego Lopez on the feet. That is a very, very good win, especially with how good Lopez has looked in recent fights. Especially just in his UFC career overall. I think Jack Shore is very good in terms of overall skills. I think he's very well-rounded. I think he uses a good jab. He uses his range very well. He can throw good kicks to the body, decent head kicks, and he has a good jiu-jitsu game. But I think the jiu-jitsu for him worked against a guy like Makwan Amirkhani because he was able to defend takedowns, defend submissions, and tire out Amirkhani, who we know only really has a round and a half of cardio before he starts to slow down. He'll come at you like a buzzsaw early, look for multiple submissions, look for multiple takedowns and get to control you, but the longer the fight goes, he's gonna slow down, and he kind of gives up any position, whether it's a TKO or submission, on a silver platter. JSP also has a win over Makwan Amirkhani. But Joe Anderson Brito is a very well-rounded fighter. He has jiu-jitsu, he has wrestling, he has top control, he has get-up games, and he has concussive power on the feet. His jab is powerful. I think he could knock somebody out with a jab in the UFC. If you watch the Andre Fili fight, he popped him with a jab, stunned him, and then followed up with a right hand and knocked him out. Basically spun Andre Fili's head around like The Exorcist. I think Jack Shore is solid. I think if he can keep it at range, he'll do decent. But I think Brito wins this fight. I think Brito is the side here. I think he has good enough jiu-jitsu to defend submissions if he gets taken down. I think he has good enough takedown defense to defend the takedowns. I think he has much more power than Jack Shore. I think he's much more aggressive than Jack Shore. And I think he has much more finishing ability than Jack Shore. If Jack Shore can stick behind his jab and stay on the outside, get takedowns and control Joe Anderson Brito, then I'll be very surprised, because I think Brito is going to make a statement in this fight. I think Brito is going to stick him with the jab, rock him, hurt him, stun him, and eventually he's going to catch him with a big shot and either drop him and submit him or knock him out completely. Jack Shore fought Ricky Simone. That was at 135. And he got dominated with the wrestling, got controlled, got outstruck, got dropped. Now, Simone is powerful. Simone has good wrestling. But I think Joe Anderson Brito is a more well-rounded fighter than Ricky Simone. Ricky Simone has fought the better competition, but I think Brito's more well-rounded. I think Brito's faster. than Ricky Simone, and I think he's going to be giving Jack Shore a world of hurt. I know Jack is known as the Tank, but I think the Tank's going to get the gas taken out and pushed off a cliff, and I think Joe Anderson Brito's going to win this fight by knockout. I think he's going to close the distance. I think the jabs right away are going to hurt him. I think it's going to look very similar to Onama and Jonathan Pierce, where Shore's going to have some success. Shore's going to land some decent strikes on the feet, but the power, the snap, the explosiveness, it's just going to be too much. And every time Brito lands, you're going to see it on Shore's... you're going to see it affect Shore much more than Shore's strikes are going to affect Brito. And I think Shore can get some takedowns, but I don't think he's going to sub Brito. We saw Brito get a submission not only against JSP, but against Lucas Alexander, who fought in the LFA. I'm actually pretty high on Lucas Alexander as a fighter. I think he has a lot to offer the UFC, but Brito's been proving me wrong, and I think it's about time I stop doubting the guy. And with the win over Diego Lopez, it's just icing on the cake considering how good Lopez has looked. So give me Joe Anderson Brito to get a dominant win and a finish over Jack Tank Shore. I think he's going to hurt him with a big right hand, stun him, jump on him, and TKO him. I'm going Joe Anderson Brito, second round TKO over Jack Tank Shore. Alright, the first fight up on the main card is a grappler's delight in the middleweight division between the former light heavyweight contender in Paul Bearju Craig taking on Caio Borralho. We know what we're going to get here. Craig is going to be looking to pull guard. He's going to be looking to roll for leg locks, roll into arm bars, try to get this fight to the ground at any means necessary. On the feet, he does have okay striking. He's going to throw some head kicks, maybe some spinning wheel kicks to close the distance, maybe some body kicks, anything from far range so that he can use that to kind of pull himself in to potential takedowns. But against Borralho, I'm going to keep this short and sweet. I think Borralho is just on another level. Obviously, if he gets reckless and doesn't respect the game of Paul Craig off of his back, or on top, if Craig gets a takedown, then he's going to be in trouble. But we've seen Paul Craig get submitted himself by the likes of Brendan Allen. I wouldn't put it past Borralho to be able to, number one, we know he's going to outstrike Craig on the feet. We know that Craig doesn't have the best chin, but he can get away with things and get away with getting hit by falling to his back, shooting takedowns, pulling guard. But I wouldn't put it past Borralho to knock out Craig on the feet. We saw that he uses his jab, he uses his lead hand very well, and he can set up power punches in the rear side and throw kicks to the body and kicks to the head. I feel like Borralho is going to want to keep this. I would say want to keep it on the feet, but to be honest, I could see him wanting to prove a point and wanting to take Paul Craig to the ground, because although Craig is very dangerous, like I said, we've seen him get submitted. We've seen him get put in bad positions. So it's not out of the realm of possibility that Craig is the one that gets submitted. I like Borralho here. Obviously, Craig is always live for a submission, and he's live for a submission in any round. So if you're going to play Paul Craig, he did get a TKO against Andre Muniz, but we know that Borralho's not going to gas like Muniz. So, I think it's always Craig by submission if you're on the side of Paul Craig, but I think he doesn't have great durability. His chin isn't the best. He's outmatched in terms of the striking on the feet with Borralho, and I think Borralho's going to keep it at range, keep it at distance, and just kind of pick him apart on the feet, and then Craig might shoot a bad takedown. Maybe Borralho wraps his neck up in a guillotine or an anaconda and ends up winning that way. I'm going to take the safe route. I'm going to take Borralho by a TKO, but it would not surprise me one bit if he ends up in a dominant position against Craig after he hurts him on the feet, ends up in a dominant position on the ground, and ends up getting a submission himself, just kind of like how Brendan Allen did. But I'm going to take Caio Borralho to get the job done via a second round TKO. Could easily be the first round as well, because we've seen Craig get cracked and get finished in round one. But I'll take the safe route. I'll go round two. So give me Caio Borralho to win by second round TKO against Paul Craig in his hometown of Brazil. Up next, we have a really, really fun matchup in the UFC's middleweight division, again between a former light heavyweight and a current middleweight in Ihor Potieria, the duelist, taking on Michel Demolidor Pereira. Pereira versus Potieria. Man, this is going to be a good fight. I think that everybody was counting out Potieria against Erceg, and you know, he got cracked a couple times, his chin held up, and Potieria showed up. You know, he has a win over Shogun Rua, but he did get cracked in that fight as well at one point before he got the TKO. He's gotten knocked out by Carlos Ulberg. He looked really good against Adolfo Bellato, dropped him, hurt him, rocked him multiple times in round 2, and then he gassed himself out. Bellato came back like the zombie we know that he is from the Contender Series, got into the top position on the ground and ended up getting a TKO. So, you know, Potieria has not had the best performances in the UFC, but I believe he's 19-5 as a professional. Let me see. I could be wrong on that record. I'm going to check real quick. 20-5. Okay, yeah, 20-5, because he got that win in his last fight over Erceg by decision. But 20-5 as a pro, you know, he doesn't lose very often. He's very awkward, and I think Pereira kind of matches that awkwardness, but he's a little bit more explosive, and I feel like he uses more weapons. The only thing I don't like about Potieria is that he doesn't really use kicks. You know, he's not going to throw a ton of body kicks. He's not going to throw a ton of leg kicks. He's not really going to go up top to head kicks. Pereira kind of uses everything. He uses every weapon of his game. He uses body kicks, head kicks, flying knees, knees to the body, elbows in the clinch, can use takedowns, can take your back, can submit you, and overall, I just think he's a much more well-rounded mixed martial artist. If he disrespects the game of Potieria, and Potieria is able to kind of stay on the outside in that southpaw stance and fire off that left hand as Pereira tries to crash the pocket, or fire off that counter right hook and then either a left hand behind it or a left hand into a right hook, then I could easily see Potieria catching Michel Pereira and knocking him out. Excuse me. That's why I think on the betting line, Pereira's like a 3-1, 4-1 favorite. It makes sense, but I feel like it could be a trap, because we always count out Potieria. He doesn't look that good. He always looks kind of slow. But in his last couple fights, even the ones that he lost, he looked good. I mean, he looked good against Bellato, landing a bunch of big shots on the feet. He's got a very sharp left hand. And, you know, the duelist doesn't play around if he's looking to box with you. And I think Pereira could be at a disadvantage if he crashes the pocket recklessly and gets clipped with one of those left hands. It would not surprise me if Potieria clipped him on the chin and knocked him out. Do I think that's going to happen, though? No, I don't. I think Michel Pereira is going to make another statement in this fight, just like he did in his last fight against Michał Oleksiejczyk. I thought Oleksiejczyk was going to make it a tough fight, a nasty fight, a dirty fight. And that's part of the reason why I didn't really bet on Michel Pereira, but I thought he was going to win, but I thought it would be by TKO. Technically, it should have been by TKO, but that's the thing with Pereira, and that's why I say he's a more well-rounded mixed martial artist than Potieria, because he threw a bunch of knees to the body, front kicks to the body, hurt him, jumped on him. You saw that Oleksiejczyk kind of like turtled up, but he had his neck out, and boom, he just immediately took the choke, didn't even really have the hooks in and got the tap, and really just put him out immediately. He goes in, he knocks out Andre Petrosky in the first round. That was a fight where I backed Petrosky, and he shut me down real quick. So this is a battle of two fighters who I've picked against multiple times, and it comes down to when you pick against two fighters, you obviously have your reasons, but who do you have more faith in to win the battle of the fighters that you don't have faith in? And I think I have to go with Michel Pereira. He has more weapons. He's faster on the feet. He uses knees, uses head kicks, uses low kicks. I feel like he can use his grappling much more than Potieria can. But again, like I said, if he comes in reckless and rushes into the pocket, I think Potieria could clip him with a big left hand and rock him. We've never really seen Pereira get hurt or get rocked. I think the sharpness of that left hand or a counter right hook from Potieria could put Pereira on shaky legs, but I'm going to say that he doesn't find it. Pereira keeps his distance and fights at the correct range, and if he's in, he's all the way in. If he's out, he's at kicking range or all the way out. I think he throws a bunch of front kicks to the body. He throws some inside and outside low kicks, some head kicks. When Potieria tries to close the distance, I think he'll land those knees to the body, and I'm going to say that he beats Potieria with body work. I'm going to say he hurts him to the body and then eventually just jumps on him and gets him out of there. It's either going to be that front snap kick to the body or knees to the body, kind of like the Michał Oleksiejczyk fight. And maybe that's, you know, a cheap way to break it down by going off the last way that he won, but I think Potieria is vulnerable to the body, and I think if he gets into a straight boxing match with a guy like Potieria, you're giving him more chances to win than you need to because you're a more well-rounded mixed martial artist. So use your jab, use your 1-2s, counter with your shots, you know, use your footwork, but front snap kick to the body. Boom, move out, boom, front snap kick to the body. He rushes in, knee to the body, elbow off the break, and just really works those body shots while putting other things in front of it up top into the legs. And I think he hurts him to the body, jumps on him, and gets him out of there at the end of round 1. I'm going to go Michel Pereira to get the job done via a, you know what, we'll go second round. I'll switch it up. I feel like I picked a lot of round 1s on this podcast, or was going to pick a lot of round 1s. So we'll go round 2. Give me Michel Pereira to defeat Ihor Potieria via a second round TKO. I also want to touch on this before we move on. Pereira's on like a 6 or 7 fight win streak. Potieria is on a 1 fight win streak. And technically he almost won the fight against Bellato. But aside from that, a win over Shogun Rua, just because he looked good against Erceg, doesn't mean I'm going to put everything to the side that we've seen from him and pick Potieria to win. He, like I said, he has his opportunities. He probably will want a boxing match, but I got to go Pereira. So Michel Demoledor Pereira to get the job done. Second round TKO against Ihor Potieria. Up next, we move to the featured bout of the evening in the light heavyweight division between the former UFC light heavyweight title challenger and mixed martial arts veteran, and a veteran in the UFC, in Anthony Lionheart Smith, taking on a newcomer who is undefeated at 10-0 in Vitor Petrino. Another guy coming off the Contender Series, man. You know, I know the Contender Series gets a lot of hate, but every once in a while you find that diamond in the rough, and is Vitor Petrino the diamond in the rough for the light heavyweight division? He very well could be. You know, and when I look at this fight, I kind of, as disrespectful as this is, I just don't have faith in Anthony Smith anymore. I picked Khalil Roundtree to beat him. I picked Jimmy Smith. Oh my God! Shout out to Jimmy Smith. I picked Anthony Smith to beat Jimmy Crute, and we got that one right. We looked real good with that pick. But other than that, man, like, I don't know. Like, Smith, I feel like this is gonna sound bad, but I feel like he has these delusions of grandeur where, like, he thinks he's so much better than he is. And don't get me wrong, he can kick my ass. Like, I'm not saying that, but I think he thinks he's like, if I fight Alex Pereira, he's got a dangerous left hook, and it probably wouldn't be good to stand with him, but I could find a way to win. Like, could Smith grapple and take down Pereira? Sure. But I don't think he's going to get past Petrino, man. I think Petrino is going to win this fight by a finish. I could see it being a decision, though, because I backed a finish with him against Tyson Pedro, and it went to decision. And Pedro... And then if you look at the Anton Turkalaj fight, man, Turkalaj actually rocked and hurt Petrino and wobbled him a little bit in a fight where, you know, Petrino was supposed to run through him. So I think Petrino is a little bit overhyped, but I think he is good. And I think we do have to, you know, respect him when we break down his fights. We know what we're going to get from Anthony Smith. He has good jiu-jitsu, mainly good jiu-jitsu on the top, more than good jiu-jitsu off of his back. He can get triangles and stuff, but he works a lot better if he has your back and is looking for, you know, rear naked chokes and ground and pound and flattening you out. He's got a really good jab, really good 1-2, a good left hook. His straight punches are probably his best weapon. The jabs and the crosses, the 1-2s right down the middle. Like I said, though, he does have a good left hook. But against Khalil Roundtree, he didn't look terrible. But eventually, he just got clipped, got hurt, and was getting hurt too much, and then got dropped and wobbled, and the fight was over. But he didn't look terrible. He didn't look like he was completely out of place. I think if Petrino gets into a full-on boxing match with Anthony Smith, then Anthony Smith can win. I'm not buying into the full-on hype train with Vitor Petrino at this point, based off of his last performance. But I do think he has really good skills. I mean, I think Petrino's a well-rounded fighter. I mean, the left hook or the check left hook that he caught Modestas Bukauskas with and knocked him out was beautiful. The performance on the Contender Series was very good. I think that Smith, like I said, if he uses his boxing, if he sticks behind that really solid jab, the 1-2, the jab cross, and mixes up the timing, I think he can hurt Petrino. But I think it's at the point where I have more faith in Petrino with less UFC experience than I do in Anthony Smith to get the job done at this point. I wouldn't be surprised if he won. I'm not telling you to go back Vitor Petrino. I'm not telling you to even back this fight to not go the distance because it's very capable of going all 15 minutes. But I am going to go with Vitor Petrino. I'm going to pick Vitor Petrino to win this fight. I'm actually going to pick him to win it by decision. I think Smith will hang in there. I think Smith will have his moments. I would not be surprised, like I said, if Smith clipped him with some hands on the feet because we've seen him get rocked. I'm not on that Petrino hype train as much as I was before. I would say this is a stay-away fight in terms of betting, especially with Petrino being such a heavy favorite. But I'm going to say Vitor Petrino wins by decision. I think Smith is tough enough to hang in there. If he finishes him, I think it would be either ground and pound from the mount or a submission. But I have a feeling he's probably going to go the distance. But if he gets a finish over Anthony Smith, man, it's a really good look for Petrino in his UFC career. But give me the Brazilian. Again, Vitor Petrino to defeat Anthony Lionheart Smith via a decision. 29-28 unanimous decision. And now we move to the co-main event of the evening between Jonathan Dragon Martinez and the returning King of Rio, the former featherweight champion in Jose Aldo Jr. This is going to be a battle of the leg kickers, man, but Aldo doesn't really leg kick anymore. But early in his career, he was one of the nastiest leg kickers around. Now, the nastiest leg kicker around is probably Jonathan Martinez, the man who has 2 leg kick TKOs in the UFC. The last one against Adrian Yanez was disgusting. The one before that against Cub Swanson was disgusting. I mean, these guys from Factory X, Jonathan Martinez and Chris Gutierrez, they really know how to turn that hip over and attack those inside leg kicks over and over and over again. Aldo's pretty good at checking and defending low kicks or bracing and countering, but Martinez is a guy where, like, you don't even want to take one. If you take 2 or 3 of those, your leg's going to be dead. Just look at the Adrian Yanez fight. That was a fight where I backed Yanez. I faded Yanez against Font by knockout. We got that one, but I backed Yanez to kind of piece up Martinez from boxing range. I thought he was going to be able to get in closer to Martinez and piece him up from boxing range, but he didn't. He chopped those low kicks over and over and over and over again, destroying Adrian Yanez's leg and destroying his knee, causing him to get surgery. You know, this guy's legit. He's for real. Against Aldo, he's going to be at a power advantage in terms of kicking, but he is going to be at a disadvantage in terms of the boxing. The one thing I don't like about Martinez is he's very smart. He's very intelligent. He pumps his jab. He circles to the outside. You know, he cracks that inside kick. Circles, jab, jab, check hook, left kick to the body. You know, jab, hook, left knee. A lot of his attacks come from that rear side. We don't really see him mix it up with, you know, boxing combinations that finish off with kicks, or kick combinations that pull back into boxing, like a left head kick, pull back, left cross, right hook, or a left head kick, pull back, cross hook, rear knee, pivot out. We don't really see him mix it up. He kind of gets to the dance with what brung him there, and that's kind of all he does. I think Aldo is at a severe advantage in terms of the boxing. He's going to be at a speed advantage in terms of the boxing. I think a speed disadvantage in terms of the kicking, but this is going to be a battle of the range. Is Martinez going to be able to keep Aldo at kicking range or just outside of it? Or is Aldo going to be able to either pressure Martinez enough to draw out a lazy kick and open up for counters, or draw Martinez in, he misses a kick, he comes back, cross hook, cross, or cross, rip that shot to the body, I think the cross to the lead body hook is going to be good. I think we'll see Aldo throw some body kicks. I think he'll probably throw that right kick to the body, that 1-2, the check hook into the right hand, 1-3-2, going up against the southpaw. But it's really going to be the question of, is Martinez going to be able to get those low kicks off? Because if he lands 2 or 3, even if you're Jose Aldo, man, your leg's going to be dead. And Aldo, at this point in his career, he retired after that loss to Merab Dvalishvili. He didn't look terrible. He just couldn't get his game off. He was constantly getting pressured and pushed back. Martinez isn't the type of guy to do that. He's going to give Aldo the opportunity to get into that striking match, which we know Aldo loves. Aldo, very good left hook to the body, right low kick. One of the first fighters in the UFC and MMA to really use that Dutchy combination. The 1-2 liver low, or the 2 liver, or the 1 liver low kick. He's very, very good at mixing up all of those combinations. So I think if it's boxing range, Aldo wins. He's going to be faster. He's going to be cleaner. And we've seen Martinez get rocked. We've seen Martinez get finished before in the UFC. But Cub Swanson was a very good boxer, and he couldn't really do anything about the leg kicks. I think Aldo's better than Swanson. You know, I don't really think we have to sit here and think about that too much. No disrespect to Swanson. I just think Aldo's the better fighter. But, you know, breaking this down from a stylistic perspective, I think everybody's jumping on Jonathan Martinez. And although I do think that Martinez is the smarter pick, I would not be surprised if Aldo came in here and pieced him up and was landing a bunch of boxing combinations and drawing kicks and jamming the kicks of Martinez and countering the kicks with the cross into the body hook, or the cross hook into the low kick, and just kind of mixing it up and being faster than Martinez, not allowing him to get his kick game off. But we know what Martinez likes to do, and we know that he's very good at what he does, and he doesn't really stray away from the game plan. I'm going to pick Jonathan Martinez. I want to pick Aldo. I want Aldo to win. But I think those leg kicks are going to get to Aldo, and I think those leg kicks are going to get to Aldo early and often. Aldo's at the down point of his career, but he still can go with some of the best. I want Aldo to win, but this hurts me to do, man. Am I going to switch my pick? I don't like to switch my pick. Let me think real quick. Let me think. Oof, man. This is a tough one. Give me a second. Screw it. I'm going with Aldo. He has good defense to low kicks. We've seen him kind of pick his foot up to his butt. Kind of like how Alex Pereira defends the calf kicks or the leg kicks. Picks that foot up to the butt, picks the heel up to the butt. Fuck it. Give me Jose Aldo Jr. via TKO in this fight against Jonathan Martinez. I don't know. I feel like he's not going to be able to kill the calf of Aldo over and over again without getting caught with a big straight right, without getting caught by a big left hook, without getting hit with that 2 liver low kick. I think Aldo's going to piece him up with the boxing. I think Martinez is going to have success from that southpaw position with those inside kicks. But I think what Aldo's going to do is he's going to brace for those inside kicks and fire off that right cross, come back with the left hook, fire off the cross into the body shot. And I think he's going to catch Martinez on the chin. And I'm going to go Jose Aldo by a TKO at UFC 301. Give me Jose Aldo Jr. to get the job done via second round TKO. I think he hurts him to the body, but he cracks him on the chin with that right hand and hurts him, and then drops him with the body shot, jumps on him, and gets him out of there. Give me Jose Aldo Jr. to get the job done against Jonathan Dragon Martinez via second round TKO in the co-main event. And now we move to the main event of the evening for the UFC Flyweight Championship of the World between the champion and a long-time UFC contender turned champion in the cannibalistic Alexandre the Cannibal Pantoja, defending his title against the number 10 ranked fighter in the division, who is undefeated in the UFC with 3 wins and no losses, with a decision victory over David Dvorak, a decision victory over Alessandro Costa, who competes earlier on the card, and most recently a vicious left hook knockout against Matt Danger Schnell in Steve Astro Boy Erceg. 27-5 on the side of the champion in Pantoja, 12-1 on the side of the challenger, Steve Erceg. I know what people are going to say. They're going to say that this fight doesn't deserve to be the main event. They're going to say that Muhammad Mokaev should have gotten the title shot. They're going to say a lot of things, but this is going to be a great fight. This is going to be... I wouldn't be surprised if this is fight of the night. I think that this fight is going to be back and forth for as long as it lasts. The one thing I will say is that originally, I always think that these fights are going to end inside the distance when Pantoja's involved. I picked Moreno to TKO him. Pantoja ended up winning a pretty dominant decision and getting the title. I picked Brandon Moreno to find a TKO against Alexandre Pantoja. Pantoja, you know, they go tooth and nail and they go to a decision. So a lot of the times you think these fights are going to end, and realistically, when you watch the fights, you think that they're going to end inside the distance, but they just don't. These guys are tough. They're durable. It could be the fact that they're down at 125 pounds and the knockout power isn't really there, but that's something that we have with Steve Erceg that's different from other contenders. He has knockout power. Now, he did knock out Matt Schnell, who doesn't have the greatest chin, who also got knocked out by the champion in Pantoja, who got knocked out by Mateus Nicolau. He's been knocked out and finished in a lot of his losses, and even if he doesn't lose the fight, he ends up getting rocked, stunned in almost every single one of his fights. But he did rock Pantoja as well. Erceg was able to drop David Dvorak, hurt him with a right hand, drop him with a big head kick. He dropped Alessandro Costa a few times in their fight and then knocked out Matt Schnell. So within the 3-fight sample size that we have from Erceg, we see that he's long, he's tall, he's rangy. He's going to use his distance to stay on the outside and use long, rangy combinations. 1-2s, double jabs, left hook into a right head kick, 1-2 hook head kick, jab, cross the body, come up top with a left hook, and hurt and rock Alexandre Pantoja. Pantoja has been susceptible to left hooks in the past. Most importantly, the one I can think of right off the top of my head is actually Matt Schnell, who went 1-2, boom, met him with a hook and wobbled Pantoja and hurt him. Pantoja, in his title-winning performance against Royval, looked like in the second and third round, or not against Royval, against Moreno, in the second and third, it looked like he was going to get finished. He was getting pieced up. He was walking forward. He doesn't have that good a defense. And I think the biggest difference in this fight is I think Erceg is more defensively responsible. I think he uses his length, his reach, his range better than a lot of the guys that Pantoja has fought. And I feel like Pantoja can have decent defense in terms of high guarding. Sometimes he'll high guard and then brace and come back with a counter low kick. Sometimes he'll block and come back with a left hook right hand. But we have seen Erceg get cracked before. He got cracked by Costa. Even though he hurt Costa as well, he got cracked by Alessandro Costa with a couple big overhands. He likes to kind of pull away, slip away, you know, circle away. And we see that Alexandre does have power. Pantoja has power. He sat down Brandon Moreno, I believe it was with a big left hook. So both of these guys have power in their left hooks. Both of these guys are going to come forward, but I think the recklessness of Pantoja is going to be a bad thing against a fighter who's as measured and technical as Erceg. You know, Royval is chaotic as well, and he also doesn't have the best defensive wrestling, but he has jiu-jitsu to fall back on. Erceg, I think, is one of the most dangerous jiu-jitsu fighters that Pantoja has fought in the UFC, aside from Moreno, but I think Moreno's a little bit better on the scramble. So I do think Pantoja, if he wants to win this fight, he's going to have to crash that pocket. He's going to have to come forward. He's going to have to get inside on Erceg, get him up against the fence, look for inside reaps, outside trip takedowns, look to get Erceg to try to, you know, turn and give up his back, and then he can lock up the body triangle and search for rear naked chokes. But even if he doesn't get the chokes, he can rack up control time. Control time is a very important thing for Pantoja in this fight. because the longer that this fight stays on the feet, the worse it's going to be for Pantoja against Erceg. Erceg is way too crisp and way too technical for a fighter like Pantoja on the feet. But on the ground, Erceg has decent wrestling. Even when he rocked Costa, he was able to defend a shot and then turn right into the full mount. He was able to grapple with David Dvorak. And we know that he has submissions. We know that he has defensive wrestling and defensive jiu-jitsu. And something that I've heard going into this camp is that he's worked with Craig Jones. Now, that's not so much going to help with the defensive wrestling, but it is going to help with the defensive jiu-jitsu in terms of knowing how to defend if you get caught in a compromising position, such as, you know, getting your back taken and getting put in the body triangle like we know Pantoja loves to do, getting your back taken and getting put in a rear naked choke, defending the body triangle, breaking out of the guard if Pantoja has your back, and kind of sinking the one hip down, and then when Pantoja tries to transition on top, turning into Pantoja, but being ready to defend the guillotine, because a lot of times if they get the one hook out, they sink that one hip, the far hip, to the mat, and then they turn in. Usually, if you're a solid high-level grappler like Pantoja, as they turn into you to try to turn in, you step over into the mount. If Erceg can defend, get his hip down, and then as Pantoja turns into him, kind of turn with Pantoja to still wind up on top, but keep your chin tucked, or have your hands ready to fight, because he's probably going to jump on a guillotine if you do turn back into him as he tries to reverse. I think that this fight is very close, but I think Erceg is the more technical fighter. I think he's better defensively, and I think he's going to make Pantoja pay for the things that we've seen him pay for in other fights and get away with. He was getting pieced up by Moreno in multiple portions of that fight, and getting caught with left hooks, 1-2s. Doesn't have really any head movement, doesn't move his head much at all unless he's trying to throw a leg kick. If he throws that low kick, he'll step deep and then move his head off the center line and throw a hard turning over the hip style leg kick. But you know, Erceg's range, his reach, his distance control, the 1-2s, the head kicks. He's 5'8" compared to 5'5", but he only has a 1-inch reach advantage. But the thing is, with him being 3 inches taller, he's going to use that reach and range much better than Pantoja, who's going to just run forward and try to get into the pocket. You look at significant strikes, he actually lands more significant strikes than the champion. It's close, 4.57 to 4.32, and he's better defensively at a 55% defense to a 50% defense for Pantoja. 3.9 strikes absorbed per minute for Pantoja to 3.64, so it's close, but Erceg kind of edges him out in terms of overall volume, but also being a little bit better in terms of defensive responsibility. They go for about the same takedowns per 15-minute fight, but this is a 25-minute fight. 1.69 on the side of Erceg, so about 2 to 2.2 for Pantoja. Pantoja is much more accurate with his takedowns, with a 30% takedown accuracy for Steve Erceg to a 48/50%. He basically gets 1 out of every 2 takedowns that he shoots, does Pantoja. But Pantoja will shoot, then transition to take your back, then look to trip you out, look to put the hooks in. He kind of chain wrestles into jiu-jitsu positions. He's a wrestler who wrestles using jiu-jitsu and submission threats to be successful. It's takedown defense. Steve Erceg has a 77% takedown defense. We saw Costa try to shoot some takedowns. He did defend most of them. Matt Schnell didn't really shoot any, and David Dvorak, it was more of a striking match. So we haven't really seen his takedown defense get tested too much in the UFC, but against a fighter like Alessandro Costa, who's going to be, you know, who's very short, stocky, but is very powerful and strong, I think that will kind of play into the game against defending takedowns against Pantoja. But you have to understand that it's not just one takedown attempt, it's a takedown entry into hiking up the body to the body lock, into dropping low for potentially a single leg, into trying to get to your back. Everything that Pantoja does is to try to gain top position, whether it's in the full mount or gain the position of the body triangle in taking your back. And if he has to shoot a regular takedown and just work his way up your body and climb you like a tree, then he will do that. I like Erceg in this spot. I won't be surprised if Pantoja wins, but I think Erceg is going to make Pantoja pay. And we know that he has power. Like, some people are going to say, well, oh, he's not the most powerful 125er. But honestly, we know that the guy has power. because we saw him sit down match Schnell. And even if you don't want to take the Schnell fight into consideration, he dropped Alessandro Costa a couple times in that fight, hurt him pretty bad. And then he also dropped David Dvorak, hurt him with a left hook into a right hand, but then dropped him with a head kick and almost finished him. And that was in his UFC debut. I think Erceg is going to get respect from Pantoja, but I think the recklessness, the forward pressure, and the defensive holes that he leaves when he tries to rush in with the combinations is going to leave him open for big counters from the guy who uses his reach better, even though Pantoja has a 1-inch reach advantage. Erceg is going to use that length. He's going to use that reach. He's going to pop that jab, 1-1-2, 1-2-3, 2 to the body, hook up top, 1-2-3 head kick, cross into the lead head kick, and he's really going to use that to the best of his ability, and I think Erceg is going to get a finish. Now, I don't know if it's going to be a submission or a knockout. I would lean KO just because I think Pantoja is going to be good enough defensively, even if he does get rocked. But I wouldn't be surprised if Erceg caught him with a right hand. Pantoja got wobbled, he shot a takedown, and Erceg was able to take his back and sub him. But I don't think Erceg, even if he does hurt Pantoja, wants to get into those grappling exchanges, even with the hurt Pantoja, because if Pantoja is able to reverse, hip in, shrimp in, turn in, then it's going to put Erceg in a bad position if Pantoja gains top position and is able to recover, or is able to gain the back control and lock in the body triangle, which can aid in his recovery as well. I'm going to take Erceg to become the new champion. I think he has the skills to beat a guy like Pantoja, and I'm going to take Steve Astro Boy Erceg to win this fight via a 3rd round TKO. I think he's going to hurt Pantoja, and all the damage Pantoja's taken in his last few fights, all the defensive holes that Pantoja has had on the feet are going to come into the light in this one. And I think that damage is going to add up as well. And I think it's Steve Erceg's time. So give me Steve Astro Boy Erceg to defeat Alexandre Pantoja via a 3rd round TKO to become the new UFC flyweight champion. Alright, that's it for my UFC 301 preview, predictions, and breakdown. I hope you guys enjoyed this podcast. I hope you guys enjoyed my analysis of the fights. This is obviously going to be available on YouTube. That's where you're watching it, with the Touch 'em Up Podcast YouTube channel. You can support the channel by liking, commenting, subscribing, and smashing the notification bell with a big left hook so you don't miss any uploads from the premier mixed martial arts and pro wrestling channel on YouTube. You can also support my Patreon, which I'll leave a link to in the description, along with supporting me via donations on PayPal. The PayPal address is in the description. You're never required, but it does help to keep this channel going and keep the channel growing. So I'm your host, Double M. This has been my UFC 301 Pantoja versus Erceg preview, predictions, and breakdown, and I hope you enjoy the fights this weekend. I'm out.